This is a comparison of two Canon lenses. One is from 1966, the Canon FL 50mm 1.8, and one from 2020, the Canon 50mm f1.8 RF mount. Now the RF mount only has one switch, and it can be used for either focus or control. You just switch it whichever way you want. And then you have a control ring that can serve as either the focus mechanism or the control mechanism to whatever you want it to be. In my case, I set it for ISO. So the lens doesn't weigh very much. It's very light. It's very easy to use on the camera. And with autofocus, of course, it has a huge advantage over the older lens. But it mostly looks a lot like the older lens, inside and out. The older lens is very heavy. It's all metal, all glass. And it has more controls on the outside. It has a ring on the back, of course, to attach to the camera mount. And on the front, you have an aperture ring, which you can set from 1.8 all the way up to, what is it, f16. The other one, I believe, will go to f22, but the older lens only goes to f16. Then you have a very thick focus ring that is not real loose, but not real tight either. It's just enough that you can be fine-tuning it on your camera. But you can't just mount it directly to the camera. You have to use the Canon mount that comes with it so that you can attach it to the camera. With that installed, it becomes very front-heavy. And when I attach it to the camera, you'll see what I mean. So attaching it to the camera, clicks into place. And then as I set it on the desk, you can see how front heavy it becomes. It will not stand up on its own. There's just too much weight. And then dropping on the lighter lens, you can see that there's almost no weight to it whatsoever. And there's no problem with it tipping over. It's very low profile on the camera. So we're going to go into some shots I took to compare the two lenses. We used my mannequin up against a bookcase. And on this first lens, I used the RF with autofocus with face detect, which focused on the far eye, in this case the right-hand eye. And the second lens, I manually focused on the far eye. So I'm switching back and forth between them. You can see that the two lenses are very similar. The only difference I can see is a slight more barrel distortion on the older lens. Now we're zoomed into the face, and you can see that the RF lens is definitely more sharp. But the FL lens is not bad, considering it's a film lens. It's still very sharp, just not as sharp. No camera corrections were added to this. No lens corrections, no camera corrections. So the vignette and the distortion are as they came out of the camera. Now in the corner of the image, you can see that the bokeh of the RF lens is smoother than the bokeh of the FL lens. And as I switch back and forth, you'll see that there's a slight onion ring effect on the FL lens. It's not horrible, but it's slight. And you can see the edges of the bokeh balls in the background on the FL lens. And then switching over to the other corner, you can see that the text image on the RF lens looks a little bit smoother when it's blurred, but when going to the FL lens, it's a little bit more pronounced. You can see the outlines a little bit more, and that's not necessarily what you want. So the RF lens definitely wins out on bokeh. And then switching to the center of the image, you can see again the colors are nearly identical between the two lenses. It's just the bokeh that really makes the major difference here. The distortion can be easily corrected, no problem there. But surprisingly how close they are in color, contrast, and pretty much clarity. Although there is a sharpness difference with the RF lens. So side by side, you can see that they're almost indistinguishable.